This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. On Nothing and Kindred Subjects by Hilaire Belloc. Section 3. On Getting Respected in Inns and Hotels. To begin at the beginning is, next to ending at the end, the whole art of writing. As for the middle, you may fill it in with any rubble that you choose, but the beginning and the end, like the strong stone outer walls of medieval buildings, contain and define the whole. And there is more than this. Since writing is a human and a living art, the beginning, being the motive, and the end, the object of the work, each inspires it. Each runs through organically, and the two between them give life to what you do. So I will begin at the beginning, and I will lay down this first principle, that religion and the full meaning of things has nowhere more disappeared from the modern world than in the department of guidebooks. For a guidebook will tell you always what are the principal and most vulgar sights of a town, what mountains are most difficult to climb, and invariably the exact distances between one place and another. But these things do not serve the end of man. The end of man is happiness, and how much happier are you with such a knowledge? Now there are some guidebooks which do make little excursions now and then into the important things, which tell you, for instance, what kind of cooking you will find in what places, what kind of wine in countries where this beverage is publicly known, and even a few, more daring than the rest, will give a hint or two upon hiring mules, and upon the way that a bargain should be conducted, or how to fight. But with all this, even the best of them do not go into the moral heart of the matter. They do not give you a hint or an idea of that which is surely the basis of all happiness in travel. I mean the art of gaining respect in the places where you stay. Unless that respect is paid you, you are more miserable by far than if you had stayed at home. And I would ask anyone who reads this whether he can remember one single journey of his which was not marred by the evident contempt which the servants and the owners of taverns showed him wherever he went. It is therefore of the first importance, much more important than any question of price or distance, to know something of this art. It is not difficult to learn. Moreover, it is so little exploited that if you will but learn it, you will have a sense of privilege and of upstanding among your fellows worth all the holidays which were ever taken in the world. Of this respect which we seek out of so many human pleasures, a facile and very false interpretation is that it is the privilege of the rich. And I even knew one poor fellow who forgot a check and went to a goal in his desire to impress the host of the Spotted Dog near Bernard Castle. It was an error in him, as it is in all who do so imagine. The rich, in their degree, fall under this contempt as heavily as any, and there is no wealth that can purchase the true awe which it should be your aim to receive from waiters, serving wenches, bootblacks, and publicans. I knew a man once who set out walking from Oxford to Stow in the Wold, from Stow in the Wold to Cheltenham, from Cheltenham to Ledbury, from Ledbury to Hereford, from Hereford to New Radar, where the cobbler lives, and from New Radar to the end of the world, which lies a little west and north of that place. And all the way he slept rough under hedges and in stacks, or by day in open fields, so terrified was he at the thought of the contempt that awaited him should he pay for a bed. And I knew another man who walked from York to Thirsk, from Thirsk to Darlington, from Darlington to Durham, and so on up to the border and over it, and all the way he pretended to be extremely poor, so that he might be certain the contempt he received was due to nothing of his own, but to his clothes only. But this was an indifferent way of escaping, for he got him into many fights with miners, and he was arrested by the police in Lancashire, and at Jedburgh, where his money really did fail him, he had to walk all through the night, finding that no one would take in such a tatterdemalion. The thing could be done much more cheaply than that, and much more respectably, and you can acquire with but little practice one of many ways of achieving the full respect of the whole house, even of that proud woman who sits behind the glass in front of an enormous ledger. And the first way is this: as you come into the place, go straight for the smoking room and begin talking of the local sport, and do not talk humbly and tentatively as so many do, but in a loud authoritative tone. You shall insist and lay down the law, and fly into a passion if you are contradicted. There is here an objection which will arise in the mind of every niggler and boggler who has in the past very properly been covered with ridicule and become the butt of the waiters and stable yard, which is, that if one is ignorant of the local sport, there is an end of the business. The objection is ridiculous. Do you suppose that the people whom you hear talking round you are more learned than yourself in the matter? And if they are, do you suppose that they are acquainted with your ignorance? Remember that most of them have read far less than you, and that you can draw upon an experience of travel of which they can know nothing. Do but make the plunge, practising first in the villages of the Midlands. I will warrant that in very little while that bold assertion of this kind will carry you through any taproom or bar parlour in Britain. I remember once in the holy and secluded village of Washington under the Downs, there came in upon us as we sat in the inn there a man whom I recognized, though he did not know me, for a journalist, incapable of understanding the driving of a cow, let alone horses, a prophet, a socialist, a man who knew the trend of things, and so forth, a man who had never been outside a town except upon a motor bicycle, upon which snorting beast indeed had he come to this inn. But if he was less than us in so many things, he was greater than us in this art of gaining respect in inns and hotels. For he sat down, and when they had barely had time to say good day to him, he gave us in minutest detail a great run after a fox, a run that never took place. We were 15 men in the room, none of us were anything like rich enough to hunt, and a lie went through them like an express. This fellow found, whatever that may mean, at Gumber Corner, ran right through the combe, which, by the way, is one of those bits of land which have been stolen bodily from the English people, cut down the Sutton Road across the railway at Coates, and there he showed the cloven hoof, for your liar always takes his hounds across the railway, then all over Egdean and killed in a field near Wisborough. All this he told, and there was not even a man there to ask him whether all those little dogs and horses swam the Rother or jumped it. He was treated like a god. They tried to make him stop, but he would not. He was off to Worthing, where I have no doubt he told some further lies upon the growing of tomatoes under a glass, which is the main sport of that district. Similarly, I have no doubt such a man would talk about boats at King's Lynn, murder with violence at Croydon, duck shooting at Ely, and racing anywhere. Then also, if you are in any doubt as to what they want of you, you can always change the scene. Thus fishing is dangerous, for even the poor can fish, and the chances are you do not know the names of the animals, and you may be putting salt water fish into the stream at Lambourne, or talking of salmon upon the upper Thames. But what is to prevent you putting on a look at distance and marvel the conjuring of the North Atlantic for them? Hold them with the cold and the fog of the Newfoundland seas, and terrify their simple minds with whales. A second way to attain respect, if you are by nature a silent man, and one which I think is always successful, is to write before you go to bed, and leave upon the table a great number of envelopes which you should address to members of the Cabinet, and Jewish moneylenders, dukes, and in general any of the great. It is but slight labour, and for the contents you cannot do better than to put into each envelope one of those advertisements which you will find lying about. The next morning you should gather them up and ask where the post is, but you need not post them, and you need not fear your bill. Your bill will stand much the same, and your reputation will swell like a sponge. And a third way is to go to the telephone, since there are telephones nowadays, and ring up whoever in the neighbourhood is of the greatest importance. There is no law against it, and when you have the number, You have but to ask the servant at the other end whether it is not somebody else's house. But in the meanwhile your night in the place is secure. And a fourth way is to tell them to call you extremely early, and then to get up extremely late. Now why this should have the effect it has, I confess I cannot tell. I lay down the rule empirically and from a long observation, but I may suggest that perhaps it is the combination of the energy you show in early rising and of the luxury you show in late rising. For energy and luxury are the two qualities which menials most admire in that governing class to which you flatter yourself you belong. Moreover, the strength of will with which you sweep aside their inconvenience, ordering one thing and doing another, is not without its effect, and the stir you have created is of use to you. And the fifth way is to be strong, to dominate and to lead, to be one of the makers of this world, one of the builders, to have the more powerful will, to arouse in all around you by mere force of personality a feeling that they must obey. But I do not know how this is done. The end of section 3.